Okay, so we have defined statistics. However, before we actually learn about statistics, it is very important for us to know that statistics can be done poorly. In fact, very often when you read a report in the news or something, many times statistics is actually done incorrectly. I'm not saying every time, and I'm not accusing everybody, but it is very important for us in this class to understand that statistics can be done incorrectly. Here are a few examples of how statistics can be done poorly. First of all, you can have problems in how you collect data. Often we say, well, what do we need to answer the question? Well, we need more data. More data is not necessarily the answer. Um, Also, questions about the data itself. Sometimes we just grab the data and use it, but there might be a problem. A common example that I would do, having done weather data before, is pressure. If you have a station near sea level, you get one pressure reading, and then a station here in Ephraim, the pressure level is going to be significantly different. If people did not understand that difference and just compare the numbers directly, then they'll be giving very bad results um, to their audience. So collecting the data and understanding how data relates to each other. You can also have problems in analyzing data. I have a few figures here of very poorly analyzed data. Here's one that talks about southwest border apprehensions. At first glance, this looks just fine. But then you look and you say, wait a second, 2011 to 2013, it looks like that number has tripled because the bar is triple in height. But really, the difference is less than 30,000. That's not significant. That's not as big of a difference as you would think. The problem is that their graph starts at 150,000. It does not go all the way down to zero. So it makes it look like the numbers have tripled, when in all actuality, they've just increased a small percentage. Here's another graph. Very similar idea. Tax cuts. If the tax cuts were allowed to expire, then they would go from a very low tax rate to a very high tax rate. But if you look at the numbers, that's only a difference of 4%. So really not that big of a difference. Again, it's the same problem. They didn't use a zero as the base number in the axis. This one's my favorite. Presidential election. And it's pretty clear that the guy on the left won, right? And it looks like it was an absolute, he just dominated that election. But if you look at it, there's a difference of, what would that be? About 1.6%. Really, this race was neck and neck. They were really close. But because of the way the graph was drawn, it misrepresents the data. So you can have perfectly good data and misrepresent it. A third way in which problems come in statistics is problems in drawing conclusions. It is very easy to take a look at numbers and draw your own conclusions from it. I have seen many times where you have a report, you give a number, clearly this shows, and they give their statement. And then I've seen another report that shows exactly the same number, but says it in a slightly different way, says clearly that shows, and have a completely different conclusion. Now, here's a really good example that I really love of problems in drawing conclusions. This is President Harry S. Truman. If you don't know the story, President Truman was running against a man, Mr. Dewey, for the presidential seat. And people had been doing polls and did statistics, and the statistics kept telling them that Dewey was going to win the election. But he didn't. And so the Chicago Daily Tribune, looking at the statistics, said, oh, it's clear Dewey's going to win. So they wanted to be the first ones on the press. They printed out the newspaper before the election was even done so that as soon as the word came out, they could hand out the paper and they'd be the first ones to give the news. Well, that's not how things went. And as a result, the newspaper had an incorrect headline and Truman actually won the election. So we're going to learn in this semester how to do statistics, but I hope you take from this a second lesson as well, and that is how to recognize bad statistics. If we can get those 2 points down, how to do good statistics and how to recognize bad statistics, then I will have succeeded as your teacher this semester. So that is our goal as we go through the class.